G'day again. Welcome to part 2 of my supplemental content for the Lost Mine of Phandelver videos. So I've been talking about ideas and themes and story elements that I wanted to add to the existing set-piece dungeon of Lost Mine of Phandelver, which, if you're familiar with, 5th Ed starter dungeon, really great, worth picking up if you aren't familiar with it. But today I want to talk about the plot hook. Because in the dungeon as it stands, it's a very generic D&D plot hook. Basically, they give you freedom to come up with your own reasons why you might be interested in coming to Phandelver, but they also say, if you want, there's a merchant called Gundren Rockseeker, and he's offering 10 gold to escort a caravan 3 days to the town of Phandelver. And that's where everything kicks off and it all goes crazy, and Gundren gets kidnapped on the way and you are inclined to go and rescue him. Problem was, I always found that a bit weak as an incentive. There's two sides to it. One is 10GP feels very light. I feel like there's a lot of PCs that would just, particularly if they don't have, in the way they've built their character, a strong sense of doing the right thing, then you get a lot of PCs who'll just go, you know what? I'm not that invested in this. And then at that point, you're sort of pushing uphill as a DN to try and interest these not particularly moral necessarily PCs in, how do I get them to do the right thing? But also, I don't love the idea of the motivation for getting involved in an adventure being someone's offered you money, and that's the only dynamic. It tends to make the characters mercenary, and it also tends to lessen the role-playing potential. It seems very cheap to me. So I wanted to do something that brought the characters in and gave them a much more of a sense of this is an important thing and you have some level of investment in it. It's not just 10 gold on the line. There's more to it than this. And also bring in a little bit of the history that I touched on last time with the Long Night and this idea of 300 years ago. There was a 100-year cataclysm that almost ended the world. So this is what I came up with. And this was read out at the beginning of the first session and also given to the PCs ahead of time if they were inclined to read it. But you never count on that, which is why you read it out of the first session. There are a few dwarves in Neverwinter more respected than the 3 Rockseeker brothers. Widely known as entrepreneurs and philanthropists, the Rockseekers are genuinely interested in the welfare of people, not just in the coin to be made along the way. Though they've certainly done well for themselves along the way. Although not technically noble, their voice holds sway on the ruling council of nobles in Neverwinter. And they're often seen as the voice of compassion among that assembly. Lately, though, their influence seems to have reached its limit. A few years ago, when a band of brave settlers announced their plans to travel to and rebuild the once prosperous but long abandoned town of Phandelver, the noble council wished them well and washed their hands of the business, offering no help. It was 3 days from Neverwinter, and that put it beyond the protection of the city, as far as the council was concerned. Only the Rockseekers allowed the venture to go ahead, the brothers providing wagons and armed escorts and fronting a quarter of the capital themselves. Apparently it had been a success. Phandelver wasn't exactly thriving, but it was established and growing slowly. They'd almost repaid the Rockseekers for their help. They probably weren't going to be the next Neverwinter anytime soon, but if they could fend off local bandits and orcs, they'd probably be able to call themselves a legitimate town in a decade or two. But then, the Rockseeker brothers found the entrance to Wave Echo Cave, and the whole game changed. Wave Echo Cave, later known as Phandelver Mine, had long been one of the richest sources of mineral and magical wealth in the realms. The cave was a natural treasure house of rare metals and gemstones, a rare natural vent of magical energies from the deepest roots of the mountains. An alliance of dwarves and gnomes, united by an agreement known as the Phandelver's Pact, worked the mine for its wealth and had even constructed a mythic device known as the Forge of Spells, where powerful enchanted items could be swiftly and easily created. Then the mine had been attacked by a force of marauding orcs and rogue wizards. In the end, the gnomes made the ultimate sacrifice to keep the mine out of the wrong hands, detonating powerful explosive devices to collapse the tunnels and seal the mine. The orcs were mostly buried with them, and the mine simply vanished. A decade later, the gnomes of Sparrowcog Mountain began to put together an expedition to search for the mine and see if any of its treasures had survived. But it never left. That very year, the long night began. The rock seekers knew that the wealth of Wave Echo Cave could not just provide wealth for Phandelver to thrive, but it could potentially revitalise the entire Sword Coast. Once the mine was up and running again, it would not only self-fund, but defend both itself and the town. The fabled wealth of the mine could easily pay for a small mercenary army. All that was needed was a small expedition to set up and a small force of men to escort them there. But that wasn't how the nobles of Neverwinter saw things. There were many reasons. Some thought the mine was destroyed or never existed in the first place. Others warned that wealth could potentially destabilise the region, drawing unsavoury elements as it had drawn the orcs centuries before. Still others cited reports of orcs and goblins massing in the nearby forests and maintained that Neverwinter needed to look to its own defence. Whatever the reason, the answer was the same. The rock seekers would receive no help from the city. They were also barred from hiring soldiers for the project. Any mercenaries who took a contract for Phandelver faced blacklisting from the Mercenary Guild. Neverwinter was keeping its warriors close to home. The rock seekers had only themselves and a single bodyguard each, as allowed by city law. But the Rockseekers are not lacking in dwarven stubbornness. They began to put out feelers, leveraging every contact and favour they had to scrape together a handful of warriors to escort their caravans. Which is how you found yourself in the Surly Cat Inn, sharing the story over a quiet drink. The nobles are blind as well as stupid, Gundren Rockseeker tells you. The central part of the mine seems almost untouched. The wealth from that place could literally rebuild the Sword Coast. I just need a handful of people who know which way a sword's pointed to run escort. I can't legally pay, but I'm offering 100th part share in the mine to whoever is willing to make the trip and help us get on our feet. My agent in Phandelver can legally offer 10 gold crowns on arrival for delivery of goods. Call it an advance if you like. So what do you say? He says, looking at you earnestly. Can you help? Are you in? It's a big ask, you know that. But you owe the Rockseekers a lot. So that was my brief. What I really wanted was to set up a few things. I wanted the sense in the PCs, which they could add to themselves, that the Rock Seekers were someone that was important to them. Not just personal contacts of theirs, although certainly having that sense, but also the sense of these are really good people and they're better than a lot of the people that live in this town, and someone should be supporting them and no one is. And also there's an element of 100th share in a mine is a substantial offer that could come to nothing if the mine doesn't get off the ground, but if this goes really well, that's a lot of money potentially. And of course you as the DM can say exactly how long it takes before that money starts flowing, and that might be that PCs are well underway financially before that becomes any kind of income source. And I also wanted that sense that I sort of touched on last time, that here a small band of people can really make the difference. Hammer home that thing of the Rock Seekers plan is good. They're on the money here. This probably could make a big difference, and the nobles are short-sighted not allowing it. And all you need is a small handful, and it could make such a difference. And I want the PCs to have a little bit of a frustration with, this is disappointing that no one's willing to help here, and it seems like I'm really the only one that the Rock Seekers could get. Like, if I say no, this might not work. So I wanted to have that sense for the PCs of they are personally invested. And that also means things like when they come across the caravan with Gundren's wagon overturned and he's missing and he's been taken by the goblins, it's not just a matter of, well, we don't get money if we don't find him. Or, he's technically our employer, so we should watch out. There's a sense of, this is a really important person. He's not only a personal friend of ours, but big things stop working so well or turn bad in Neverwinter and in Phandalin if this guy goes missing, because he's sort of holding stuff together. And you want that sense of the PCs are actually personally invested in bringing this guy back. And also things like, I would like it down the track if when they find the youngest Rockseeker brother dead in the mine, then they personally feel that because they kind of knew that kid and they felt for him. So yeah, that was the supplemental stuff I did specifically as a plot hook. So it wasn't just, I'll pay you 10 gold if you escort me to Phandalin, or if you take a load of stuff to Phandalin. Now, next time I will look at a couple of very specific player briefs I did to add to this, to actually give them a very specific incentive and a feel for why they were invested in it as an individual character. But we'll worry about that next time. So for now, thanks for listening. If you want to grab any of this and use it, you're welcome to. But if you have thoughts on it, I'd love to hear them in the comments. So thanks.